The darkness is total. Electric motors hum low and sustained. The sound of a machine built for this, moving through water it was never meant to touch, and then, underneath the hum, a tone. Electronic, it rises and falls and rises again. Then something else. A sound the men aboard USS Bowfin cannot name and cannot stop. A scraping, metal on cable. It begins somewhere at the bow and travels, slowly, deliberately, down the full length of the hull. It stops. Nobody speaks. The tone resumes. These men know what a mine cable sounds like. When it runs along the outside of their boat, they know what happens if it catches. By the summer of 1945, Japan is losing a war it has been losing for 3 years. Its merchant fleet, the circulatory system of an island nation that produces almost nothing it needs to fight, is being strangled across every ocean in the Pacific. American submarines have been at work since December 1941. More than 1,000 cargo ships and tankers gone. Oil from the Dutch East Indies no longer reaching the home islands. The submarine campaign has achieved something no submarine force ever managed in any previous war: the effective strangulation of a major naval power's economy from beneath the sea. But there is one body of water where none of this is happening. The Sea of Japan, 400 miles wide, 900 miles long, enclosed, bounded by the Korean Peninsula and the Soviet Maritime Province to the west and the Japanese home islands to the east. 3 narrow straits connect it to the open Pacific. Tsushima in the south, La Perouse in the north, Tsugaru between Honshu and Hokkaido. The Japanese have converted all 3 into fortresses of underwater mines. Dense, invisible, patient. The result is a maritime sanctuary, unlike anything else in the theater. Japan's Korea to Honshu shipping routes run straight through it. Food, steel, coal. Moving undisturbed through Emperor Hirohito's private ocean while the war destroys everything around it. Japanese merchantmen sail these waters with their running lights on. Navigation aids burning, no escort, no zigzag, no reason whatsoever to think the war has found them. Until June 9th, 1945, not a single American submarine has ever entered the Sea of Japan and returned alive. To understand why Operation Barney exists, the story must go back 2 years. October 1943. La Perouse Strait, a submarine called USS Wahoo. At that moment, Wahoo is the most successful submarine in the Pacific. Her commanding officer, Lieutenant Commander Dudley Walker Morton, Mush to everyone who knows him, has built something rare, a crew so well suited to his style that they have, on a single patrol, wiped out an entire convoy without assistance. No other American submarine has done it. Morton has earned the Navy Cross with 3 gold stars, credited with 19 ships and nearly 55,000 tons across 4 patrols. His executive officer is Richard O'Kane, who will go on to command USS Tang, receive the Medal of Honor, and describe Morton as the finest submarine commander he ever served under. Before his first patrol in command of Wahoo, Morton stands before his crew in Brisbane and delivers a speech that will be quoted for decades. The Wahoo is expendable, he tells them. He means it, and they know it. Any man who wants to stay behind has 30 minutes to notify the yeoman. No questions asked. No mark against anyone. Nobody stays. The naval historian Theodore Roscoe later writes that few skippers equaled Morton's initiative, and none had a larger reserve of nerve. On October 11th, 1943, Wahoo is trying to exit the Sea of Japan through La Perouse Strait. She has just sunk the Japanese passenger vessel Konron Maru, whose loss has been announced in the Japanese press. A public humiliation that puts anti-submarine forces on high alert throughout the region. When Wahoo enters that passage, she's already being hunted. What follows is systematic. 10 aircraft sorties between 09:45 and 13:30. Surface depth charges alongside the aerial attacks. At least 40 bombs. 69 depth charges. At 13:30, the oil trail tracking Wahoo's position goes dead in the water. Attacks continue until 16:30. The sea goes quiet. No survivors. 79 men. 3,000 miles away in Pearl Harbor, Vice Admiral Charles A. Lockwood opens his diary. He writes that the loss of Wahoo is the worst blow we've had. Then 4 more words. God punish the Japanese. Lockwood is 53 years old. He has spent his entire adult life in submarines. His first command was USS-A2 in December 1914, before most of his current submariners were born. His Uncle Charlie to the men of the Pacific Submarine Force, the admiral who arranges 2-week stays at the Royal Hawaiian Hotel, who makes sure ice cream and fresh vegetables are waiting at the pier when his boats come home, who replaces the timid commanders and promotes the aggressive young ones. His sailors call him a submariner's submariner. He is also now a man with something to answer. The sinking of Wahoo effectively ends American submarine operations in the Sea of Japan. The waters are too dangerous, the technology insufficient. Lockwood waits. He does not forget. In January 1945, he directs his staff to begin planning the mission that will eventually be called Operation Barney. He has decided the time has come to go back. The problem standing between Lockwood and the Sea of Japan is the Tsushima minefield. 4 lines of mines strung across the strait, each one an iron sphere packed with explosives, tethered by cable to a weight on the seabed, floating at a preset depth. Without a technological answer to those mines, sending submarines into Tsushima Strait is not a military operation. It is a sentence. The answer arrives in the form of frequency-modulated sonar. FM sonar. Originally developed for minesweepers, it sweeps ahead of the submarine in a continuous electronic arc, and when it detects a mine nearby, it builds toward a tone, a chime. The men who train on it give that chime a name: Hell's Bells. When the bells sound, a mine is close. The closer the mine, the louder the bells. The first FM sonar-equipped boat reaches Pearl Harbor in June 1944. Lockwood drives the training program personally. By early 1945, USS Tenosa has completed the first successful FM sonar patrol. By mid-May, 9 submarines are equipped and their crews trained, except that the technology is not perfected. The first tests are so unreliable that sonarman Neil Pike of USS Spadefish describes the early results as sounding like a chamber of horrors. The wiring problems are corrected, the calibration improved. By the time training ends, FM sonar is functional, accurate enough most of the time to detect mines at a safe distance. Most of the time. Lockwood decides that most of the time is sufficient. He has also equipped each submarine with Mark 18 torpedoes, electrically driven, wakeless, leaving no exhaust trail. A Japanese merchant captain will have no warning before impact. No way to know which direction the torpedo came from. The key is ready. It is imperfect. They are going anyway. The force is named after the man who designed it, Commander William Barney Seaglaff, a veteran of 7 war patrols with 15 ships to his credit. He organizes the training, selects the 9 submarines, and places the senior officer on the water, Commander Earl F. Heidman, commanding USS Sea Dog, who will ride into the Sea of Japan as the formation's operational commander. The force is codenamed Heidman's Hellcats. 3 wolf packs, the Hepcats, Sea Dog, Creval, and Spadefish, assigned to Northern Honshu, Pierce's Polecats, Tunny, Bonefish, and Skate, Risser's Bobcats, Flying Fish, Bowfin, and Tenosa, bound for the Korean coast. 9 submarines, 760 men. The enlisted crews are not told where they are going until the boats are underway. 2 of the 9 commanding officers matter most to what follows. The first is Heidman, the man who will lead his wolf pack through the minefield first, on whose sonar everything that follows depends. The second is Commander Lawrence L. Edge of USS Bonefish. 32 years old, born in Columbus, Georgia, Naval Academy class of 1935. He has commanded Bonefish through a productive Pacific career. She has sunk the destroyer Inazuma among her kills and carries a record that places her among the most effective submarines of the war. He writes long letters home to his wife. He writes about wanting to be done with the war. He writes about their unborn child and the life he intends to return to. The Hepcats depart Guam's Apra Harbor on May 27th. The Polecats follow the next day. The Bobcats sail on May 29th. The crossings are uneventful, except for one. On June 1st, USS Tenosa of the Bobcats receives orders from Lockwood to divert and search for the crew of a downed B-29, the Skyscraper 1. Tenosa finds them, 10 airmen, alive, in an open lifeboat in the Pacific. They are brought aboard. They are told where Tenosa is headed. They ask to be put back in the lifeboat. They would prefer the open Pacific. They would prefer to float under the sun and wait for someone else to find them rather than continue aboard a submarine bound for the Sea of Japan. A passing, homeward-bound submarine takes them off. These men have already survived a crash into the Pacific Ocean. They have already weighed their odds and decided those odds are survivable. When told what the alternative is, they choose the lifeboat. 760 other men make a different calculation. They stay aboard. They keep heading north. Just after midnight on June 4th, 1945, the Hepcats reach the entrance to Tsushima Strait. Sea Dog takes the lead. Her FM sonar powers up. The tone begins, and almost immediately, something is wrong. The sonar is producing blobs, vague, indistinct returns on the screen where there should be clean, precise images. The hell's bells, when they sound, come out mushy, uncertain. The sonar that is supposed to tell Heidman exactly where the mines are is telling him almost nothing. He is the overall operational commander of the entire mission. He is on the lead boat. The one piece of technology the entire operation depends upon is not working. He proceeds anyway. Sea Dog threads through 4 lines of mines it cannot properly detect, in the dark, running submerged, guided by instruments that are barely functioning and the nerve of the men reading them, 20 hours underwater, in a minefield. When the 3 Hepcats surface to rendezvous on the other side, they are through. They set course for their assigned stations. The Polecats enter the following night. Skate reaches the first line without incident. The second line is different. The mines are spaced 50 yards apart. USS Skate is 311 feet long. 50 yards is 150 feet. The submarine threading that passage is longer than the gap between the mines on either side. There is no margin of error here. There is only the sonar tone and the darkness and the precise, controlled attention of men who are trying not to think about what they are moving between. Skate comes through. Tunny comes through. Bonefish comes through. The third night belongs to the Bobcats. Flying Fish, Bowfin, Tenosa. The hell's bells are singing almost continuously now, a near-constant tone that tells the crew they are within 300 feet of a mine, that they have been within 300 feet of a mine for a very long time. The control rooms are silent. Depth gauges, compass headings, sonar screens. The electric motors hold their low note beneath everything. And then, aboard USS Bowfin, a sound. It begins at the bow, a scraping, metal on cable. A mine's tether running along the outside of the hull. It is not loud. It does not need to be. Every man who hears it knows exactly what it means. Nobody speaks. Nobody moves except to keep moving. The cable travels the full length of the boat. Slowly, all 311 feet of her, and then it stops. Bowfin keeps moving. By the morning of June 6, 1945, all 9 submarines are inside the Sea of Japan. The gates are behind them. Whatever happens next happens in Hirohito's private ocean, and the gates do not care about the way home. What the Hellcats find inside? Ships, unescorted, sailing straight courses with their running lights on. Japanese merchantmen in the Sea of Japan are operating in peacetime conditions. They have never had a reason to do otherwise. The minefields at the entrances have held for years. No submarine has breached them and returned. The captains of these ships have not extinguished their lights because it has never occurred to them that there is anything here to hide from. Japan built such a perfect fortress that the men inside forgot they were inside one. The Hellcats' orders are specific. Begin attacks at sunset on June 9th. They wait. They watch the lit ships moving across the water. When sunset comes, the Sea of Japan has American torpedoes in it for the first time in the war. The attacks are businesslike, efficient. Baofin, assigned to the eastern Korean coast, finds an unescorted cargo ship on June 11th and fires 4 torpedoes. The Shinyo Maru, 1,898 tons, sinks in 3 minutes. 2 days later, the Akiura Maru. Across all 3 Wolf-Pack areas, the pattern repeats. Unescorted ships on predictable headings, no wake. To follow, no warning before impact. For Japanese naval leadership, this is not only a logistical problem. The Sea of Japan is not merely a shipping lane. It is proof that Japan still controls something, still holds something the enemy has not reached. Ships disappearing in these waters mean one thing above all else. The last wall has come down. The operation is working. Everything is proceeding as planned. No one notices yet that Bonefish has gone quiet. Bonefish will not make the June 23rd rendezvous. That much the record shows. What the record also shows, and what Lawrence Edge has no way of knowing on the morning of June 18th, is how. On June 16th, Bonefish meets Tunny in the northern Sea of Japan. Commander Edge reports his results. 1 large transport sunk, 1 medium freighter. His crew has been inside the Sea of Japan for 10 days. The boat is sound. 2 days remain before the scheduled rendezvous that will begin the exit. On the morning of June 18th, Tunny and Bonefish meet at 38 degrees 15 minutes north, 138 degrees 24 minutes east. Edge asks permission to conduct a submerged daylight patrol in Toyama Bay, a deep bay on the mid-western coast of Honshu, potentially rich in targets. He receives permission. Bonefish departs for Suzo Misaki. Japanese records, cross-referenced after the war against American patrol reports, show that on June 18th, a cargo ship in Toyama Bay is struck by a torpedo. The Konzan Maru, 5,488 tons. She sinks. Escorts converge. The Okinawa, CD-63, CD-75, CD-158, CD-207. They attack. What Japanese records describe rising to the surface afterward: oil, wood debris, cork insulation, a submarine at approximately 200 meters depth. Edge does not know any of this is coming when he leaves Tunny that morning. He knows Toyama Bay has targets. He knows his sonar is working. He knows his torpedoes are ready. He is 32 years old, and he is writing letters home to a pregnant wife, and he is taking his boat into a bay on a coast he has never seen. On June 23rd, at sunset, 8 submarines rendezvous in the northern Sea of Japan for the transit home. They count each other. There is a gap where Bonefish should be. They wait. They transmit. The calls go unanswered. After the other 8 boats have transited La Perouse Strait, Tunny turns back. On June 25th and 26th, she holds position off the entrance and calls on every available frequency. She listens. The sea does not answer. Bonefish is lost with all hands. 85 men. Commander Lawrence L. Edge. His officers. His crew. In Pearl Harbor, Sarah Edge receives notification that her husband's submarine has been lost. She refuses to believe it. For the next year, she writes letters to Lockwood, to the Navy Department, to anyone who might know something. She asks for information. She asks for certainty. She is carrying a child who will not know its father. Lockwood reads her letters. He has nothing to tell her. On June 24th, 8 submarines make their exit. La Perouse Strait, 27 miles wide at its narrowest. Japanese patrol craft and aircraft. The boats run on the surface, at speed in daylight. Dark silhouettes doing 20 knots through patrolled water, bow wakes cutting white against grey sea. La Perouse Strait is the passage where USS Wahoo was destroyed on October 11th, 1943, the graveyard that Lockwood spent 2 years preparing to answer. The Hellcats ran into the Sea of Japan to avenge a ghost, and they run out through the place where the ghost lives. Morton and his 78 men are still down there, in 65 meters of water, where a Russian dive team will find Wahoo's wreck in 2005 with a bomb crater in the conning tower. The 8 surviving submarines pass over them at speed and do not stop. The sea allows no ceremony. Somewhere in the anti-submarine activity churning around the strait, a Soviet cargo ship, the Transbolt, is also lost in these waters. Russian sailors dying in a ship that has no part in this mission because the waters around it have been made lethal. The Hellcats carry this home with them too. 8 submarines pull away from Japan. 1 month earlier, there were 9. On July 4th, 1945, USS Bowfin enters Pearl Harbor, flying a broom from her mast, the old naval signal for a clean sweep. The other boats follow across the preceding days. Lockwood is there. He awards each of the 675 surviving Hellcat submariners a certificate enrolling them in the Distinguished Order of Mighty Mine Dodgers. He shakes hands. The arithmetic of Operation Barney comes to this. 28 ships sunk, approximately 70,000 tons of Japanese shipping eliminated from the Sea of Japan. Japan's last maritime sanctuary breached. 1 submarine lost. 85 men. 6 weeks later, on August 6th, a single B-29 drops a single bomb on Hiroshima. 3 days after that, a second bomb falls on Nagasaki. Japan announces its surrender on August 15th. The war that Operation Barney was designed to help end, by strangling Japan's last supply route, by breaking the last sanctuary, ends by a different mechanism entirely before the effects of the June blockade can be fully measured. History does not wait to see whether the work was necessary. Lockwood spends the rest of his life with this. In his post-war writing, he is direct. The mission was vitally necessary. He stands in the front row at the surrender ceremony on the deck of USS Missouri. He has earned that place by a calculation that history has since made permanently difficult to verify. Peter Saskin, writing in his account Hellcats, offers the counter-argument without softening it. Operation Barney was simply not worth the risks it entailed. The loss of Bonefish alone, he argues, settled the question. Neither man is provably wrong. Saskin cannot show that the mission failed to shorten the war. Lockwood cannot show that it helped. The atomic bombs arrived before anyone could measure the answer. The argument lives in the gap between what happened and what might have happened, and that gap closes for no one. What doesn't live in a gap is Sarah Edge. She spent a year writing letters to an admiral who did not have the answer she needed. She raised a child who grew up knowing only what the letters said, that he was loved, that someone was coming home, that the war would end. The letters from Lawrence Edge stopped on the morning of June 18th, when Bonefish departed Tunny and made for Suzo Misaki. What came after belonged to the escorts and the depths of Toyama Bay and the silence the Sea of Japan kept for 8 decades. In 2025, a survey team working in Toyama Bay locates a wreck on the seabed. On March 24, 2026, The Lost 52 project announces the discovery to the world. USS Bonefish, SS-223, found. Resting on the floor of a bay on the western coast of Honshu, in a Japan that has been an American ally for longer than the war lasted. Lawrence Edge and 84 men. The strategic question, whether Operation Barney was worth the cost, whether Lockwood's arithmetic was right, whether the mission that answered one ghost created another that outweighed it. That question belongs to historians. It was not resolved in 1945. It has not been resolved since. But for 80 years, nobody knew exactly where Lawrence Edge and his crew were. Now we do.